All right, welcome to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel, and today we have special guest Jonathan Brower. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to
You
be
know,
here.
it's good to have you, man. We were just running a 5K last Thursday, and this is how this usually goes: is I'm running as fast as I can, maybe 20 minutes, 50 seconds, or something. It's pretty fast for me, and I'm at that time top 10. This was like Thursday, the White Rock co-op thing, not co-op, but White Rock Consortium. I forgot what it was
Yeah,
called.
YR Conservancy.
Conservancy, yeah. And here I am, like I think I'm at mile 1.5 or 2, and then you just come past me with the stroller, with your baby, talking to your baby, and then you're passing everybody else. This is normal, This is like anytime there's a 5K race with like either DRC or White Rock, or you're in it, but you're just passing a bunch of people, just kind of slogging along and jogging along, and I love that. And it was funny. I'll have to tell you a little story because I'm done. I start trying to talk to you, and then somebody starts coming up to me and starts, Chris, what's going on? So that's it. And they look at you. I think you walked off, whatever. That's a guy that was talking to his baby. And he was talking about the Stars game and what time the Stars game is. And I'm like, I know. And he just passes us by like it was nothing. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see you nowadays, just kind of hanging out with the kids, running 5Ks. And I appreciate what you're doing, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So I just want to tell that story because that's how I always see you now. I want to know more about you, man. Like I met you in DRC years and years ago, and would love to get to know you and a little bit about your running journey, and then we'll kind of go from there because I have lots of questions for you. How about that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Let's go. Like when did you start running? Like what got you interested in that? Do you remember?
So running for me, I really didn't start running till probably the last semester of grad school, which it would have been um, early 2012.
Okay.
Up until that point, I had been playing. Really, tennis had been kind of my sport since I was pretty young, and I played it all through middle school, high school, and even at A&M. I wasn't playing on the varsity team, but I was playing on the club team, and it was fairly competitive. You could take it as seriously as you wanted to, and I really started to get burnt out, and tennis was just not for me anymore at that time.
Did you do any racquetball or
I did a little bit of racquetball just for fun, but I tried to always like focus on tennis because I didn't want the racquetball to mess
to
up my
mess up your, form and things like that? Is that
exact.
a real thing?
Oh
Like
yeah, it
it?
is.
Okay.
I think it is a different. I mean, I think tennis players like going in, I could just wail away at a racquetball and beat people, even though I didn't have racquetball strategy. I could just swing the racket as hard as I wanted to.
Hit him in the back.
Yeah, there's a lot larger margins in racquetball, at least from my tennis perspective. So
Yeah. Okay. So you got a little tired of tennis, and then you thought maybe I'll start running, or I mean,
yeah,
that seems like a natural progression. I mean, there's a lot of running around in tennis, I guess, right?
yeah, and it's interesting because for me, running had always been kind of just a means to an end. It was not something that I would just want to go out and do. It was always part of training, or like you need to go run so that you're in shape so you can play, multiple matches over the course of a weekend in tennis. And I think the seed probably got planted in high school when I had one of my tennis coach was a former Army drill sergeant. And so he had us doing all these weird workouts and push
Yeah.
and jumping
That's
rope.
probably what made you hate it,
Yeah, that might have been it too. But I remember during the summertime, he would always challenge us with a 2 mile run, and he tracked our progress the whole summer. And you want to make sure that you're improving over the long, hot summer of doing these weekly 2 mile runs. And I had no idea what I was doing back then with running. We would just go out there
just
and
running.
yeah, just
But
you
I'm
know.
sure you're beating people pretty badly, or back then, or not
There
really.
was always it was usually like me and one other guy that we were kind of always pacing off each other.
Never thought about it. Like you're like, I'm just doing this to play some tennis.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was just part of my training. But then yeah, once I started getting a little burnt out of tennis and it just became, well, all you have to do is put on some shoes and go for a run. So I started kind of doing that and again, I had no idea what I was doing. I remember just putting on my shoes and like running out the front door and just going full speed like right off the bat. It
We
was
all do that at
three
first.
miles at like 6 minute pace without even thinking of the consequences.
Yeah.
And then wait a couple days and be like, let's try it again and go a little faster this
And
time.
go faster. Yeah.
So, but yeah, then I moved to Dallas. I graduated in May of 2012, got a job here in Dallas. And so I moved here about a month later and pretty quickly found the Dallas Running Club.
Okay. And so they had a more structured program that sounds like you might have been interested in and probably learned some things from it.
At that time, I joined the Dallas Running Club. Like I paid membership dues, but all I did was go to the
Races.
monthly races. Yeah. So
Yeah,
started.
and how now did that keep you kind of energized, like you'd run it and do pretty well? Is that how that went, or what happened?
Yeah, I would run, and I kind of enjoyed the competition part of it. And I started to, after I did a few races, I was like, okay, well, how can I get better now? So then tried to start reading up on some stuff. Met a couple people through DRC that were like, hey, you should come to the training groups. And, we have coaches, we have pace leaders, and it still at that time wasn't clicking yet that I needed people. So I just it was just doing my own thing for a while. And it wasn't until I think it was the fall of 2015 is when I finally signed up for an actual DRC training group.
Did you like see yourself before 2015 like progressing in your runs at all, or was it more like, was it just
I think I was progressing at the shorter distances, but then I ran my first marathon. It was 2013, I think, was when I ran my first marathon. Um, that was in Chicago, and then I wanted to. I caught the marathon bug. Then I was like, okay, I need to improve my marathon time, and then I ran New York the next
all right,
year.
wait, let's back up. You've already like got me intrigued. So you ran Chicago, and how'd you do, first of all, and how was your yeah, because you weren't really, thinking I think you were probably thinking of training a little bit because I mean to run a marathon you have to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I was like looking up like, some plan you can just get off the internet for free. And I don't even remember what it was. I probably kind of mixed a few together. But I did most of the training runs by myself. A couple times on the long runs, I got someone to join me for at least
Okay.
a few of the miles. But I ran a 306 something that first year in Chicago.
Your first marathon you ran at 306.
Yeah, so I was right there. I was right there at that time. The BQ, the Boston Marathon standards were a little bit different. So I was like right on the line. I was like a minute and change away from just the main cutoff. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm
Yeah, you were young.
shooting distance now.
Yeah.
It's an achievable goal because I really didn't know what to expect. So then
Was that your goal was to try to qualify for Boston, that first marathon, or did you even think about it?
I mean, I think it probably was. But I was also, I think I had enough people remind me that, hey, you just don't know what's going to happen in the marathon.
Yeah, but I mean, that's true in general, right? Like, I mean, that's generally what I'd tell people, but you were right there the
Yeah, it was
first one,
close.
like 1 minute
And
off,
it really, yeah, I mean, it was kind of the typical like mile 20, 21-ish, things kind of fell apart. Stuff started cramping. And that's where that kind of fell apart that day. So, yeah, it
Did
was,
you do any half marathons before, like to kind of,
yeah.
rev yourself up?
So that first year that I moved to Dallas in 2012, I signed up for the DRC half. So DRC half was my first ever half.
Okay. So, I mean, you had some long distance type stuff, in your
Yeah.
belt, not marathons, but still. Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't completely winging at that point, but I think I was still just doing it by myself and just self research too.
Okay. So then you're like, I'm sure you're probably pretty pumped about what your time was, right? I mean, were you happy about that, I assume? Like,
Yeah,
and
I
then,
loved the big city feel of Chicago. I think that was a really good first one for me because at the time I was like, I don't know, this might be my only marathon. So I was like, let's do it big. Let's go to a cool city. Let's make a vacation out of it. Like I didn't want to, nothing against Dallas, but I was like, I don't want to just run in Dallas. If I live here, like if this might be my only one, let's go somewhere
let's
and
make
make,
it big.
yeah.
It's a great marathon. My wife's done it a few times. I've been at least once, maybe twice. I didn't do it, but um, all right. So you did that first marathon. We don't have to necessarily go through the entire journey, but I'll go as much as you want. But then you said you did New York or thought about New York, or what was the
Yeah.
next
So
one?
then the next year, I was like, okay, I want to do another one. I'm knocking on the door.
Let's go bigger.
And then yeah, I was like, yeah, what other big cities can I run in? Well, you can run in New York. So I did the lottery that year, and yeah, it was like a 10% chance, and I got in via the lottery. So it was like, okay, let's go to New York. Did that one. I did worse that year. I think it was like a 312 or 313.
Makes sense.
Central Park Hills really, I mean, actually, it was like the Fifth Avenue hill right before you get into Central Park. That really is what broke me. And then I just remember just struggling all the way through the finish in Central Park. So that was kind of discouraging, but I still was like, I can figure this out. Like, I'm still right there, 312. It's within shooting distance still.
Now this was before you started running with the group still. So this is the next year, 2014, I guess.
14, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going. So You said, I still got the bug. I want to do it. I'm not discouraged. So that's good.
So, and then at this point, I had become pretty good friends with Omar Benzor. Who I actually met him at my very first DRC race, like back in 2012, because I was
It's
wearing
kind of a
an
badass too. Yeah,
Yeah, he's awesome runner. He should definitely be on this, even though he doesn't live in Dallas one day. But
definitely.
no, I was wearing an A&M shirt, I think, at that first race I did, and so then he came up to me, he's like, "Hey, did you go to A&M?" And told me he was, an Aggie as well, and then we found out we're both civil engineers, and so we kind of instantly connected through that. This whole time, he was the one who was like, "Hey, you should join DRC," and I was the one being like, "Maybe not right now." So yeah, finally, and he had been, he had been giving me a little bit of advice through that first Chicago marathon and New York, and so finally I was like, okay, I need to do what Omar says, and I need to go run with him and his group. So yeah, then I joined DRC and I signed up that year for the Portland Marathon,
Okay.
Portland, Oregon.
Was that a downhill or was that a?
I guess the race it really doesn't exist currently in the state it was when I did it. It started and ended in downtown Portland, and had some good hills in it. But that
All
was
right, so let's back up because let's talk about training with DRC. Did you learn a lot, or was it more of, what went on there? I'm
I
curious.
think the biggest thing I learned out of it was just how to be consistent. And so I think having the two group runs a week, that was at least, okay, I have to show up for these and I have to get this workout done. And then from there, it was seeing, okay, but there's also all these other runs that have to happen in between those group runs. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to be ready for the long run.
You're not gonna be able to keep up.
Yeah.
I've done that before. I've run DRC for years, and I remember, I would pace lead for the purpose of that. I would get my runs in during the week because sometimes if you're just doing those two runs, eventually those long runs will catch up and you won't be able to do those long runs because you're
Yeah.
not doing the work during the week, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 15 or 17 or 18 miler come up and you haven't been doing that work throughout the week, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long Saturday morning.
And so, all right, so you ran with Omar, but there were some others back then too, wasn't there? Like Paul and some
Yeah.
other fast dudes.
Kindle. I know Tracy Duty was on in the group too.
Yeah, she was.
Who else? It was a small group.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it was.
There's like 4 or 5 of you. It was Paul, Kendall, you, Omar, Tracy, and maybe one or two others.
Yeah,
So, and we'll get to some of that in a minute because now you do some coaching, I think, on the side, or but and I'm highly interested in that. So you get to Portland, and you've been running with a group, and how'd you do, and how'd you feel?
so that was my breakthrough race was the Portland Marathon. I ran a 2:58 there,
Okay.
and I think it helped. Yeah, just having that base that I built all through the couple years leading up to that
Yeah.
training season, and then having like all the support from DRC people. I really enjoyed that. Even though no one else from DRC that year was, at least in my group, was doing Portland. Still felt very supported by them. And yeah, fortunately they had a 3 hour pace group in Portland that year. So I just tucked in with them, and it was just stare at the back of this guy's shirt, carrying the stick, and don't let go. And I remember like it was probably mile 23 or so. We were running across the last bridge over the river, going back into downtown Portland, and the pacer, he was like, "Man, we're ahead of schedule. You probably got a minute buffer right now. Like, I'm gonna drop back a little bit and try and get back right on pace, but like you need to go right now. Like, this is it. You're good." And so I just kind of went out by myself at that point, and yeah, kicked it home.
Sounds like you did a good job pacing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great, man.
it was very very consistent.
It's a tough one to pace, right? Like, I mean, because anything can happen, especially at that level, I think. Maybe at any level at a marathon. But do you kind of look at that and say, being around the community, DRC was helpful, or what's that?
Yeah, it definitely was very helpful. Just for having that community during the week. By the time you get to race day, I always say, like, all the work is done. That's just like if you've done everything right, that's like the coronation. You just got to go and go through the motions. So yeah, having all the support leading up to it really helped, even though I didn't really have anyone from Dallas with me in Portland that year.
Yeah, but I mean, you've run a lot of races alone, anyways. So that wasn't really, I mean, I'm sure it helps to have people run with you, but I mean, for the most part, you're going to these destination races that are, you have to travel to. I mean, you've been to Chicago, you've been to New York, and then Portland, so not everybody can do all those things, but that's pretty cool. And then you went to then did you go to Boston or obviously you qualified?
Yeah, so I qualified that year. So that year though, well, like I didn't, even though it was 2015, I was like past the 2016 window. So yeah, I didn't go to Boston until 2017. So in between then, I did end up doing Chicago again in 2016. At that point, I was pace leading for DRC. So I was a pace leader. I ran 2:59 in Chicago.
Very consistent with the last one.
Yeah, the goal in Chicago was just I just wanted to prove to myself that it wasn't a
Do it
fluke.
again.
Yeah,
Was it a fluke? Of course it wasn't a fluke. I mean, you ran a 3:07 your first one.
yeah,
But yeah, makes sense.
and
So
then
you
yeah,
went, so you did a 2:59 Chicago, and did you run another one before Boston or?
no. So then yeah, then I just
Okay.
got ready for the Boston. So it was probably 7-8 months after that Chicago.
And how'd you do? What'd you think? Atmosphere. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so that one I really took it as just a victory lap kind of thing. Kind of that mindset started at the beginning of the season, and it kind of got forced on me more because I ended up getting a stress fracture.
Oh,
So it kind of turned into like just get to the start line and just finish. I think I had to do like an 8 or 10 week build up to Boston that year. And so at that point, I was like, yeah, you know what, just go
have fun.
enjoyed the experience. My good friend Mauricio Castillon, he was also running his first Boston that year, and yeah, so we just ran it together. We just did all the things, high fiving people the whole way, eating the free food people give
That's
us.
great.
Yeah, so it was really nice to experience it that way.
Yeah,
I think I ran like a 3:30, yeah, something in the 3:30 range.
that's a nice, easy run race for you. I mean, that
Yeah.
sounds, like, hey, I went there, I had fun, I didn't want to injure myself more. Were you injured at that time, or were you feeling better?
Yeah, I mean, I felt better. My foot might have started to flare up a little bit towards the end, but I got out of the race like unscathed. I think I just took a couple weeks off and kind of got back to it. But I
Okay.
will say, even though it was like, I slowed down and that was my slowest marathon, man, you still feel it those last couple miles, no matter what speed you're running. Like the distance just, it catches up to you eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy race. I know Leah, my wife, she's done it. It'll be her 12th here coming up. And she's like, she enjoys it, she loves it, but she's only had two or three really good Boston marathons. So, it's not an easy race from my understanding and from what, there are people that actually PR it. So it's not like it's not doable, but in general, I don't think it's super easy anyways. Hills and downhills and bunch of stuff. Um, what have you been doing since then? I mean, have you run more Bostons or what's the kind of latest?
So the marathon story from there was so then I did Boston again in 2017 because that was from my second Chicago time. So I got to do it back to back years. That second year,
Redemption or
kind of in a way, I was definitely trying to uh, train hard for that one. But that ended up being the year where there was you were probably there with Leah. The year where it was like really rainy and cold.
I didn't go, but yeah, I
Yeah,
remember it.
yeah.
Luckily, I didn't go. I mean, I would have not had fun anyways.
Yeah. So it was that year. I think I ran like a 3:11 or 3:12.
I mean,
It was
considering the
still a good time.
elements too.
Yeah. But I do remember just at one point, running along in that rain and the wind blowing, and I remember like the wind like literally like pushed me sideways at one point and just rain hitting me in the face. I just started laughing because it was this so ridiculous. And
That's great.
I remember thinking too, like if it had been any other day, I would have not gone running that day. But I was like, I'm here at the Boston Marathon. Like, what am I going to do? Not run? But it was
Yeah, yeah.
the worst day ever to run.
But all day was miserable from my understanding. Like, there wasn't one that you've just felt, I don't know if this is true for you, but I know Leo's like, not one time did I feel warm. Like generally when
Yeah.
you run, you can, even if it's cold outside and slightly raining, but I hear it was, I mean, from my understanding, it was pouring the entire time. It was cold, just no time to get warm at all.
And I remember I was trying to be clever and smart, and I had my race shoes in like three, like triple bagged. And I was just carrying them, and I was wearing like throwaway shoes. And so then at the last minute, when I'm in the corral, I go into a porta potty and I change into dry socks and then my nice dry race shoes. And then I get out of the porta potty and I get back into the corral and I immediately just step in this massive puddle All of that hard work to keep my shoes dry right out the window.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah, but it probably didn't matter. They would have been soaked within 2 miles anyway, so it was all useless
But
color.
still, I agree with you. It wouldn't have mattered. Right when you get those shoes on, you step in a big puddle and you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's a little disheartening.
Yes.
Um, all right. So I mean, that's pretty good actually. Like 311 for that day. You got to be happy with that. Any kind of like PRs along the way since now, or is 258 you still your
After that Boston, that was 2018. After that one, I kind of took a step back and I was like, I don't, I felt like I'd kind of accomplished what I wanted to accomplish the marathon distance. I wanted to focus on my half marathon
That's
time.
my favorite, by the way.
Yeah, that's my favorite too, by far. But then, so in late 2019, my wife got pregnant with our first son. We're like, okay, I understood right away, like it's gonna be a little step back with just all kind of commitments at that point. So,
Well, your wife's been a runner too, though, so she could kind of understand too.
yeah, but then also, the pandemic happened, and so that, that kind of put a lot of stuff on hold. My first son Noah was born in May of 2020,
Yeah,
so just a couple months
a lot
after.
of babies were born.
Yeah, it was a good time to have a newborn because stuck at home anyway. What else are you gonna do? So I feel like I kind
Exactly,
of
it can help out a lot and stuff.
yeah, I felt like I cheated first time parenting because I was there. Like,
Exactly.
so yeah, then at that point it was really like, okay, I kind of told myself I was basically retired from the full marathon distance just because I couldn't see the time commitment being there with young children. But
Now,
then
quickly, like it's a good point because are you the kind of person that believes in big distances? Because I've talked to some elite athletes as of late, and sub-elite, and they believe hardcore into kind of the 80 to 120 miles a week to really kind of get to your peak, right? And
yeah,
so that's a lot. And so my point is that's a lot of time,
it is.
especially if you have a baby. They're doing 2 days,
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's like even if I don't have a kid, and I do, but he's now 14. I don't know that I really want to run 80 to 120. It's just like a lot. So I
yeah,
don't
it
know
is.
what your thinking is around that.
No, I think in the ideal situation, if you have the time, it's definitely the best way to prepare. But I think, well, I think I was able to find not a way to cheat the system, but I think I was able to navigate my way through the time commitment because, I was starting to focus just more on the halftime at that point. And then I believe it must have been in 2021, I signed up for the DRC half. They actually had the race in 2021 after taking a year off. I signed up for that race and I ran like a 120 something. I was just under 121, and that was my half PR, and I was
Okay.
really stoked by that. And then a couple months passed after that, and I was thinking about the 120 time, and I wanted to break get a 119 at some point. But then I was like, wait a second, I think 120 will get me into the New York City Marathon again without
How
having.
long?
So I looked it up, and yeah, sure enough, I could get in via time qualifier to the New York City Marathon. And I'd always kind of wanted to go back to that race because I felt like I'd kind of fallen apart at the end, and I just love the big city atmosphere. So I went ahead and signed up for New York again. I signed up for the 2022 race, but at that time our second son had been born in March of 22.
Oh, okay.
So I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it, but I figured out that I could sign up for 22 using my time qualifier and then immediately cancel my race and defer it to 23. And I
Okay.
thought I'll be in a better position when my younger son is at least a year old and I can really push in 23. So that's what I did was I deferred it to 23, and I just set myself a really long-term plan. Like pretty much once the calendar turned to January 23, I started laying out like a really long-term plan for myself, basically building up to New York through the whole year, and it paid off. I actually was able to PR in New York that year with a 257.
Okay. You're just like clicking away by the minute.
Just yeah, little steps. But I don't know. It was interesting to me because I feel like my mindset was able to change a little bit with having kids because, I didn't have the time to log the 80, 90-mile weeks, which I do think, if you have the time and the ability,
Way to do it.
that's the way to do it. But that just was not available to me. That wasn't an option to me. So I had to figure out a different way to do this and a different way to get this done.
Tell me about that.
So I tried to basically scale back. I knew that I didn't want to injure myself because it really had been, at that point now, it had been 5 years since I'd done a full marathon.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to, I knew I couldn't just throw myself back into what I was used to doing. I was also 5 years older. I'm not,
You're
I
not in your
didn't,
20s anymore
yeah,
or whatever you are. I don't even know how old you are, but
yeah, I guess yeah, so that would have been when I was 34. So
oh,
yeah,
okay.
like late 20s and now I'm mid 30s. So I wanted to be careful about it. I didn't want to hurt myself because I also just wanted to get there. I didn't want to, not even start or DNF. So I kind of built myself a plan where I would just methodically built up those long runs. I got myself up to like 14, 15 miles like consistently every weekend by April. So still like way out, like 7 months out. But then I just kept chugging along with
I
those.
can wait.
I just did one speed session during the middle of the week, and I think the whole mindset though
Are you doing it by yourself then? Where you're like, hey, I don't have time to meet with groups anymore. I just have to do this on my own, or
yeah, I had some people meeting with me, but yeah, because of the young kids, I had some runs that I started at like pre 4 a.m., like 3:50 a.m. Yeah, because I wanted to be home before 7 or 6:30 ish.
yeah.
So
Takes a
sometimes,
partnership, man. You know that.
yeah. So I started to realize though that, just getting out and running was a win at that point.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the mindset started to change because I think before kids and before you have other life stuff going on, you can in a way make your training perfect.
Yeah.
There really is a way to make everything perfect. And then you expect perfect. And when something doesn't go quite right, maybe we can sometimes freak out and worry that, oh, that wasn't the perfect run or I didn't have the perfect week of training.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah. That's
definitely
true.
had that mindset at one point in my life. But I think with having the two younger kids, I realized like, hey, just the fact that I got to do a workout this week was like, that's
I
big.
did 15 miles this weekend on Saturday or whatever, right? It's like it's pretty amazing.
And then if it was a bad day or I didn't nail anything, like I could stew on it for a little bit. But then I knew that, hey, in 30 minutes, two little kids are going to wake up and they need me to be at my best. And I
They
need to,
don't care about your run.
yeah. So I would move on very quickly.
Good. I like that.
So yeah, I feel like then once I got to New York, it was kind of I just was like, I mean, this is why you're here. Like you spent this whole year preparing for this, and yeah, it wasn't perfect. I didn't run the most miles by far that I've ever run during a training session, and I didn't do all the workouts that I normally would have done, but I felt ready, and so I just was like, I gotta go now. Gotta take the shot.
I love that. And you did it, right? Like, I mean, you even PR'd and it was only a minute, but because I still think, I don't, there's people that you can see, and we'll talk about this in a minute because you've done some really great things with other people, like as a coach. As you can see, like some things in people that they are faster than what they're showing, right? Like,
Sure.
because they've done this thing consistently. A lot of times, if you do it long enough and you're smart about it, there's a breakthrough, right? Like, okay, let's say Jonathan's kind of main thing is 258, 257, 259, whatever, right? Like that's kind of his peak right now. But there's potential this guy could go like 240 ish. You know what I mean? Like there is. I mean, but there's people like that. Even whenever I've run with DRC, you see people like Lexi or um, you see people like Moeko or Mo or Tracy Duty or whatever. When they were here running with DRC, they got fast, but their potential was never, I mean, met, right? Yet. I mean, maybe that has been now, but you knew that they had the opportunity to do even better than, I mean, just because it's there, it's like it's just so close. And sometimes
Yeah.
it's in the mindset, it's certainly training, but I think a lot of it's in your mind. Like if you're running with 140 or 130, you're like, oh, that's as fast as I can do. I was like, no, no, you're definitely a 130 person, like, or faster than a 140. You just are. But because we all do that to some degree, we put ourselves in this thing.
Yeah.
I'll stop there because I think to me that's what I've seen in a lot of runners, and so let's talk about that is so those three or four people that I just mentioned, are now being coached by you or have been coached by you. And I've seen huge gains by like 10 minutes sometimes of a PR and a half and I'm like, dang, like breakthrough in full, like I know Tracy Duty, you were her coach and What is it that you're instilling in, and kind of what's your philosophy as a coach?
I think, yeah, I definitely agree with what you say about, just realizing the untapped potential. I definitely I enjoy seeing the incremental advances in people, whether it's I think I take this into my work a lot. And then also with running and coaching, I love looking for just the small signs of improvement and then studying and understanding how to grow those small increments into larger increments of growth. And I think it is, like you said, it's a lot about the mental side and just self-belief. And sometimes it just takes someone in your corner saying, no, you have this and you can do this. And I think one of the things that being a coach with DRC taught me, and going through the coaching certification program that they supported me through, was just seeing that while there is a lot of kind of gray areas with running, there's a lot of, for me, I appreciate the kind of the math behind it. And if you can hit certain paces and do certain workouts, you can pretty accurately predict how you're going to do at something. And so, but there's always outliers, of course. But I think the coaching has taught me to be a good predictor of potential, and helping to then explain to a runner that, okay, this is really what you are capable of. And that doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen. You could still miss, or something. There could be a bad weather day, or just you eat the wrong thing the night
Anything can
before.
happen.
But it's there. And so I think, and then having the physical proof and backup data to show that they're there, I think then helps plant that just initial seed of belief. And then it's really on them to take it from there. But that's what I try to do. It's kind of a mix of science, backup data, but then also just realizing, like, it takes some internal motivation, but also some external motivation from people around you, and that you can do this.
I love that you take a data approach. I'm a big data guy. I say I'm a big data guy. Like I enjoy looking at data and things like that, and probably not so much when I'm running, but I do think that approach is interesting. I don't think I've heard that, but it makes sense. I mean, it's all about, if you're running these splits and you're running these times and you're doing these things and you're hitting the paces, you're capable of doing this particular time. You're
Yeah.
capable. Doesn't mean you will, because there's a lot of other factors like weather and mental kind of focus and is it hilly? Is it not? I don't know, whatever. But um, that's interesting. The first person that's said that, right? Like that I've heard. And I like that. What kind of data do you look at mostly? What's the?
So, the Dallas Running Club, they paid for me to take one of the RRCA coaching certification classes, and they have, I think it's some pace tables that were created, I think back in the 70s, that they use, and I use those a lot of times for creating workout schedules. But I'll track, very specifically each runner's workout splits. And it's really cool because I like to do kind of a comparison of, like, look, you ran, these mile repeats at this pace 3 months ago, and you just did that same workout again, and you're telling me it sucked and that you did awful, but you just ran them 30 seconds faster than you did 3 months ago. And so that, I think, is the data. Like, that's concrete evidence. Like, you are literally improving on paper, and you might not feel like it mentally, but I can show you that you are. And then from there, we can take that physical data and turn it into something that you use to motivate yourself internally.
Gives them a boost. I like that, man, because it's like, well, I know it seemed harder because you ran 30 seconds harder, you know, and so it seems like you struggled, probably did, because you ran 30 seconds faster on each one. Here's the positive is that you ran 30 seconds faster on each split or whatever. So that means you can do it, and so that builds some confidence. I love that, man. That's really uh, a big builder, I think. That's pretty
And I
cool.
always It sounds a little scary, but I like to tell people, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, it's gonna suck at some point. And the question is, when it sucks, are you going to give up and freak yourself out, or are you going to be like, you know what? It always sucks right here, and I can get through this, and it's not the end of the world. I have X minutes left, or I have X miles left, but this is just what I do because I'm comfortable being uncomfortable.
Kind of like what Courtney Dauwalter says, just embrace the Peyton cave,
Yeah, exactly. You have
You know
to.
who she is?
No, I haven't heard that name, but I know that, or I've heard that kind of phrase before.
Yeah, she's a ultra runner and literally the fastest woman ultra runner in the history of ultra running, right? Like, and she's getting, closer to the men, and it's pretty immaculate, but that's what she said. She goes, I used to just, when that pain cave hit, she goes, I would just kind of break down, and I would allow myself. But now I try to embrace that pain. I want that pain cave to come because once it does come, I know I made it
Yeah.
and I want to go through it, and so maybe taking a different approach rather than, oh my gosh, this really sucks. And not that it doesn't. How do you embrace some of those
Yeah.
kind of things? I'm not saying it's easy but the best of the best overcome that. And if you can overcome that, you can certainly get better times and hit those PRs and break through, man. That's who she is. She's just this immaculate,
Yeah.
amazing woman runner in the ultra marathons, doing 100 milers, whatever, doing stuff like that. Have you ever done anything more than a marathon?
No, haven't. And I've never really considered it. I've always thought, marathon is it for me. I'm not saying I'm totally against it. Things change as you progress through life, and who knows, it might be something I get interested in later. Yeah, right now I just, yeah.
What are you interested in now? Are you coaching a bunch? What does that look like? And then what are you kind of interested in right now? I know, you have a life, kids and work and spouse and things, but what's going on from a running standpoint?
Now for me, I mean, I am coaching. It's small right now. It's probably like two or three runners, and I enjoy that. I enjoy giving the time and the detailed effort to everyone. And then from my running perspective, I did that marathon, New York in 23, and I don't have a plan to do another marathon right now. Kind of told my wife that was it for me for fulls, and I want to honor that.
And did she say yay?
Yeah, I mean, she actually, because I ran so early in the morning, I got home before our kids even woke up when I was training. So I tried to minimize the impact on our family, but it wore me out. I was exhausted.
She didn't care because you're still doing the work, but
Yeah, I was just
yeah,
falling asleep at 2 o'clock in the afternoon every day.
I'm tired.
But I kind of took 2024 off for the most part. I ran, still every week, 3 to 4 times a week, but I didn't want to put my push, yeah, through something and put the stress on myself. And this year, I haven't uh, signed up for a fall half, but I'm definitely thinking I'll sign up for like DRC half or maybe Dallas BMW half, and yeah, kind of come up with a goal sometime over the summer.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to keep pursuing the half marathon. I enjoy the 5Ks.
I feel like your opportunity for half marathon hasn't even started yet, like from a breakthrough. I don't like, I mean, you said the best is 121, is that right? Or
Or
120?
120, yeah, yeah. I would love if I got in the 119 one day. That'd be
I
awesome.
think you have a breakthrough coming, not just 119, but I mean, not to put pressure on you, but I believe you do. Like, I mean, you've got all the talent in the world. And look, I mean, family's there and things, so that's the most important thing. But, from a talent standpoint, man, I think it's still untapped for you.
Yeah, I'm
I do.
gonna keep pounding away and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say this is like I've really enjoyed watching kind of your career from a running standpoint, or just kind of watching you and just go really fast and beat people. And like the 5Ks are really fun to watch because now you do it with your kids most of the time, right? And so at least one of them.
Yeah,
So I talked to this guy on this podcast. He was in Houston and he's an elite runner. He's now 40 plus. I think he's just turned 40, 41. And, in Houston, he won Masters at like 221, 222 or something like that for the marathon. But he was pacing somebody. So I don't know that he was going as fast as. But, anyways, he has all these records. And their stroller, like he has like 4 or 5 kids. And he would run with his kid like a marathon one time, and he won the stroller record. And then he ran a half marathon with the other kid the next year or two, and got the stroller, running with the stroller, So he's done that. I think one of them's been beat or something, but he has 3 or 4 world records. So maybe you should think about that.
yeah. My kids are they're
Too
getting
big.
too old to push now. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it always depends. Like when you saw me this past Thursday, I still like when we show up for the race. I don't know which kid I'm gonna push, and it just depends on their attitude. Like, oh no, I want dad to push me today, or no, I want to go with mom. So yeah, more lately I've been drawing Noah, our older son. He wants me to push him, and he's about to turn 5, and I definitely am feeling the weight.
He's 5, man. That's got to be a tough one.
A couple of years ago, it didn't matter. I honestly didn't think it really affected me that much. Once I got, the start, of course, you got to get going. If there's any kind of hill, I would feel it. But once I got going, I didn't feel like it slowed me down that much. But now I definitely feel it.
He's bigger, right? So, but it's fun to watch you, man. Like I've been seeing you do it for a few years now, and like I'll be running, and there goes Jonathan and one of the kids just passed the stroller. Have you ever won one of those or get close to winning like one of those 5Ks?
There's like a neighborhood 5K in our neighborhood called Run the Highlands. I think one year I got like second or third
That's pretty cool.
with the stroller. Yeah.
So there's one thing I want to talk about that before I forget is form follows fitness. Okay. So I've been doing that for a few years and I know the race director or at least the guy that puts it on. He was on the podcast, he and his wife. How are you? I know you're very involved in that and have been over the last several years. And what does that look like? I'm curious.
So yeah, the Form Falls Fitness 5K, it benefits the Architecture and Design Foundation. Right now I'm actually on the Architecture and Design Foundation board. My day job is a structural engineer, so I am a consultant for architects and I help design their buildings, build the structure that holds up architecture, help make architecture happen. And I love buildings. I've loved buildings since I was a little kid. I remember going on trips with my parents and I always wanted to go to downtown wherever we were because I wanted to look up at the big buildings. So I've always wanted to understand how buildings work, how architecture works, and I wanted to know how they stood up. And so that's what led me to being a structural engineer. So that event specifically, it's like perfect for me. It's architecture and running together.
That's awesome.
And I just so happen to work at a company where there's a lot of runners. I've basically convinced our company every year to be a major sponsor in the event. So we sponsor a tent there, and we pay for our employees to run the 5K. I make training plans for the company and put them on our servers.
You do? That's
If
pretty
someone wants
awesome.
to, because there's some pretty advanced runners in our office. There's some people who just kind of dabble, and there's people who've never run one, and they hear that they can sign up for this 5K for free, but they don't know anything. I don't know what to do, so I try to make a plan for them, even if they just want to walk it. And I think we had
It must be a pretty big company, right?
yeah, we have about 100 here in Dallas. We had about 45 people sign up for the Form Falls Fitness this year. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun because there's a little internal competition within the AEC industry because the architecture firms will sign up team, we sign up a team, other engineering firms sign up teams, the contractors sign up teams, and they give away a fastest industry team brick trophy.
That's cool. Are you guys the ones giving away the bricks?
No, that's a Blackson brick. That's like the
Okay,
yeah. So that brick company, they sponsor the trophy, so that's why all the trophies are bricks.
got it. Yeah.
But
It's a
yeah, so
pretty cool event, man. I
yeah,
really like. Do you know Adam? He's from Manhard. Adam. So it's funny because here I'll get his last name. Adam Gribben. Do you know him? Probably
no,
not. But anyways, he works at Manhard. You probably heard of them. Maybe, maybe not. But anyways, his company has a tent and everything else there. The last few years, he's beat everybody at his company. So, maybe 10 or 15, 20 people sign up. And so he's kind of excited about that every year now. And
yeah,
so this year he's like, Chris, I'm staying with you. This way, if I stay with you, I can, beat everybody from his company, right? Like not every, you know what I mean? And so, it's a nice little thing. You probably know Jenny and Adam Thomason. Yeah. Yeah. So Jenny's a big runner, or has been in the past.
yeah.
Used to run with her all the time, and so I know she's a big engineer, and so is he. So
But they're both architects. Yeah,
yeah, they're both architects, not engineers, architects. My bad. But
yeah.
I
No,
kind of
it's
get you
it's
too confused sometimes.
it's a lot of fun. I enjoy getting people at my work and then colleagues that I work with excited about the race, and then I think even the non architecture side of the running community is really caught on that's a great race. So there's a lot of runners who do the race and they have no association to an architecture engineering firm. They just know it's a fun race.
I come to the race. I'm not an architect or nothing, right? And I love it,
Yeah.
because it's a party. I mean,
Yeah, it's a nice party downtown, and I can't think of any other 5K that starts and ends down there at the park and has that really unique course. You get to see uptown, a lot of downtown.
well, they also put on this race that is it's called what Me Casino puts it on sort of, but
Yeah, the Mambo
Mambo
Taxi.
Taxi or Mambo Miles. So
Yeah.
that's a party as well. There's like 3,000 plus runners there. I remember the first year they put it on, or second or something. Leah, so there was like 2 or 3,000 runners, and she got first overall in the women's. And she was like, "Oh, nobody." I was like, "You showed up. Like there's 1,000 women there, and you won." Like that's who showed up. You. So yeah, you never know, but. You just have to have a good day. But they put on some good runs.
Yeah.
But anything that I missed that I should have been asked that I should have asked you that I just missed completely, or
I think we covered a good amount. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Form Flawless Fitness because I love that race. And
that's awesome. It's one of my
yeah,
favorite 5Ks. Maybe second, maybe it's first. I don't know, but any 5Ks, I'm starting to do more of those this year. I'm
they're
gonna do
fun.
the Velvet Hammer coming up. And I never did that race, I don't think. I'm doing the 5K in Boston because Leah is running the marathon. And have you ever done that 5K?
I have, yeah. I did it 1 year with my dad.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a ton of people at that one too. Yeah, it's
And
just
elite runners,
yeah,
literally elite runners running 13 something a mile or 13 5-minute
yeah. The,
5Ks.
the year that we did it, we were so far back in the starting corral that like we were just getting to the start line and like the elites were finishing. It's like, oh,
Why'd
okay.
you get so far back? Is your dad, you just running with your dad or something?
Yeah, we were just doing it just to
Okay.
they had something to do that weekend with us too.
Yeah, I always thought 5Ks are one of the hardest, just because it feels like a sprint the whole time. But, you don't feel too bad after like 30 minutes. You're fine after you're done, you
I
know?
think I get more anxious before a 5K that I'm trying to go all out than I do before a marathon because
I know.
there's zero margin for error and you know
Yeah,
it's going to be just pain immediately.
exactly. How do you approach the 5K? I'm curious because you do quite a bit of 5Ks or
Yeah,
have.
I just try and go out. I try to go just even splits. It usually ends up negative splits, but the goal is I just try to go and just hold on. And I'm not saying that's the best advice, but that's what I try and do. And
Do you
yeah,
ever get up there and think, man, I want to win this?
yeah, I've come close in Form Falls Fitness. I think I got third 1 year. And yeah, if I won that race 1 year, that would be. I think I'm.
Can you beat Carlos? Do you know Carlos? He gets like second or third every year.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think I know who.
Yeah, that's right, Pata.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like last year I was felt like I was in decent shape. I didn't run as well as I wanted to, but yeah, hopefully next year, yeah, I can gear up again. My PR is at that on that course, so I think it's a nice fast course.
What
Lots
is
of
it? What's the
my PR is 16:45.
dang, dude?
Yeah, I
No,
don't.
that's fast. Like, I mean, think of it. If you were to equate that to a half marathon, that's way faster than a 120.
Yeah, that would be
I mean, I'm not saying you're going to run a 16:45 per
okay.
K,
Yeah, if you're to
but
extrapolate.
I mean, see, your potential, man, is still pretty amazing. Like I still think you got it if you can get the speed and miles in.
Yeah,
Well, Jonathan, this has been great. Really appreciate you coming on and great conversation. Thank you everyone for tuning in to another DFW Running Talk. I'm Chris Detzel. Please make sure you rate and review us. And Jonathan, thanks again.
yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.